So a hyperfocused brain, an ADHD brain, is completely absorbed in the task to the point of seemingly ignoring or tuning everything else out. When people describe hyperfocus, sometimes they talk about it as a dreamlike state where the outside world ceases to exist. Hyperfocus can prove helpful when you're able to channel its intense focus into difficult tasks, paying bills, completing homework, writing that report. You'll hyperfocus on it. The thing that's important about hyperfocus is if you know that you tend to hyperfocus on certain things, you have to use a timer. Because when you spend more than an hour or 2 hours on a task, your brain is working really hard and it's using up all the glucose, the energy that it has stored. And so once those glucose centers are depleted, what kicks in is cortisol or adrenaline. And so now you're essentially running on fumes. So hyperfocus for a period of time and figure out what's going to help you stop. Whether that's a timer, 3 timers, a phone call from a friend, and get up, walk away, and take a break for 30 minutes. Before you get up and leave, what you want to do is write yourself a note about what it is exactly you were working on and what you were thinking about so that you can then come back to it that way. Okay? Because that pressure actually will exhaust you over time. All right? So one of the problems that people have with getting out of hyperfocus is that whatever the task is that's after that, and this would be true for anything that actually pulls you into that rabbit hole, whether it's shopping on Amazon or, spending time on Instagram or any social media or anything like that, is that whatever seems next isn't as compelling. It's not as engaging for you. And so your brain, it's supercharged, energized, maybe it's depleted after a hyperfocus. It's hard to shift because the lure of that dopamine is very strong. So how do we transition from a hyperfocused, high dopamine reward activity to a lower dopamine activity? What it requires is impulse control, emotional regulation, and metacognition. Impulse control. You've set up a structure for you to stop. You actually stop. Metacognition. You're aware of yourself. You click in and realize I haven't gotten up from my chair in 2 hours. You're aware that you've been really zoned in here. Your timer helps you do that. The tomato timer is a great thing for this. And you pay attention to what's happening around you as well as what's happening in you. Like, whoa, I really need some water. I haven't had a drink in 4 hours. Another way that you want to transition is emotional regulation. This is part of this. These all work together: impulse control, emotional regulation, and metacognitive awareness. Because what happens is your emotions are like, I want more pleasure. I want more pleasure. This feels good. More, more, more. And what's happening is your metacognitive brain is saying, hey, you know what? I know this feels good, but continuing to do it actually isn't the right choice now. Okay, it's not healthy for me. I have to take a break. And that is where the impulse control kicks in. So all of these things work together, and it's challenging, right? Because these skills do not come naturally to people with ADHD brains. And so we have to start by creating some kind of schedule and following it and setting some time restrictions and using alerts on your screen or your phone that will let you know it's time to transition. Having some phrases you can say to yourself when it's time to transition. Okay, this is really fun. I've now spent a lot of time on TikTok. I've spent more time than I should have. It was supposed to be 30 minutes. I ignored my timer. Now it's been an hour. My second timer's gone off. Actually, I need to listen to this. I need to listen to this because I do have things I want to do, because I'm suddenly tuning in, and my awareness is telling me, wow, you know what, I really have stuff to do. There's also there are also apps that you can get that kind of float across your screen to kind of help you come back to focus. So having that awareness that you are actually not paying attention to the thing that you'd like to be paying attention to is a very important first step. And it has to be non-judgmental, right? It's like, oh, okay, I've drifted. Oops, that was 30 minutes that I wasted, or I spent ineffectively. I prefer that language, but we'll say wasted because that's probably what you say to yourself. I need to like regroup and try again. So articulating what the transition is to the next thing, when you name that activity that you're shifting to, helps you actually go to it. Okay? So I'm going to the thing that I want to. I'm going to stop. I'm going to put my TikTok down, and instead I'm going to stand up and I'm going to walk my dog around the block because he hasn't been out in 3 hours. And when I come back, I'm leaving myself a note of cleaning the kitchen with loud music so I can dance at the same time. So we have to really think about things, external motivators that help us. Listening to a podcast could be that. I know for me, when I have a stack of dishes, I'm going to be completely honest, I put on, music from the 1970s, disco music, and I'm discoing around my kitchen, while I am cleaning up. Sometimes I might put on, Lizzo very loudly, and my husband will be in another part of the house and he'll come down. He's like, it's so loud. I'm like, leave the kitchen, please. I'm doing my thing. You wanted it needs to be cleaned. You asked me to take care of it. I'm taking care of it my way, right? So that's important to know, like what's going to help you really juice up and get it done.